Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Maple Syrup Show. It is Wednesday night. It is December 11th. Wow. Where does the time go, Kat? Where does it go?
I don't know, but it goes.
It goes. Kat is not feeling super well today. So, she's a little under the weather. PAX, con drop, all that stuff. Not COVID, but con
No,
crud
not
nonetheless,
COVID,
right?
but it's something. It's definitely something. I don't sound like normal me, and I apologize if I keep muting myself. It's because I'm coughing.
Well, there you go. And we're here this week with Jason Tagmire. Welcome, Jason. How are you?
Hey, I'm good.
Yay.
That's good.
I
And
survived PAX without a
yes.
cough, thankfully.
Oh, well
Yeah.
done.
And how was your PAX, sir? Was it good?
Yeah, it was super busy. Our booth was super busy, but we had a lot of staff this year, so I was able to kind of have some meetings and go shopping and get everybody food and kind of get away from that booth for a little bit, which hasn't happened previously.
That's
Well,
the
that's luxury.
the benefit of having lots of staff or having a
Yeah.
product that can sell well.
And
And
being
it's
12 minutes from the convention center. That helps too.
Yeah. So this was my first PAX. And Kat, was this your second PAX?
So, at the time, I thought it was my third, but I can't think of when my third one would have been. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was my second. I get confused. This is my second PAX Unplugged, probably.
Yeah. And then Jason, how many times have you been to PAX Unplugged?
So because it's local to us, we've exhibited there since the first year, which I told someone the other day was 3 years ago, and it turns out it's like 6 or 7.
It's a long time ago.
Yeah, I was way off.
Way off, way off.
That
That
COVID
whole
time
lockdown
festival,
thing was
yeah,
weird, right? So
They also kind of concertina and squished together, and yeah.
exactly.
yeah, and then next year I think it's happening at the same time as BGG Con again, so it'll get weird again, and
Yep.
things will get better. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I love the city. It was great. Being right in Chinatown is very nice for people of my persuasion, the Asian persuasion. So that was really nice. And then yeah, PAX was neat. It was pretty chill. It wasn't. It's funny for a 3-day convention. It didn't feel as rushed as Gen Con, which is funny because it's like a day shorter. And I just wish there was more time. I do, not necessarily want it to be a 4-day convention because I think, for those of us who run booths, it's just one more day of no fun. It's not that it's no fun; it's just not as fun, right? But I would like to come in early. I've already kind of said if I go again, my plan would be to go early and leave late, just so I can explore the city, spend time with more friends, and then eat more food because the food around there is great. So there you go.
It really is. I, for some reason, booked a 7 a.m. meeting on Sunday, which was, I guess, getting there early and leaving late. But yeah,
What a
that was an
terrible
interesting one.
idea.
It was
Yeah.
such
Why
a
would
bad
you do
idea, but it
that?
was a good friend, and it was a lot of fun. It was good to chat.
Oh, okay. Well, as long as
It
you
was
had a good time.
worthwhile.
Yeah, and you
It's not like
both
one of those
knew.
puffy meetings,
Yeah,
Okay.
as long
No,
as it
like
was.
a
And
full-on
was it
serious
like
meeting.
was it a meeting where you needed to like have breakfast?
We did have breakfast.
Well, then it's okay.
Exactly.
There you go. Okay. So friends and foods and meetings,
Yeah.
it all goes together. It was just a meeting at 7 o'clock. Could have been an email, Jason. It could have been an email.
Exactly.
So, Jason, let's talk about you. This is the first time on the show, even though Jason's been part of this industry for a long, long time. This is the first time we've ever had you on Maple Syrup, and we don't know much about you. So, why don't you tell us about your origin stories? How did you get into gaming? How did you get into game design? What made you decide on Button Shy? Why Button Shy? What does that name mean? And how is Jason Tagmire and gaming connected, like intrinsically?
So I started playing games probably mostly when I was like a late teen. Like I would play tons of video games growing up, but board games I think I became a collector before a player, which is dangerous because I'm still a collector more than a player. I think we all are. But I would go to all the thrift shops and pick up all those like 80s and early 90s, like big long box, really cheesy games like 10-4 Good Buddy and like anything that was just oddball. My father-in-law was also like he owned an auction house. So weird oddities would come across on all ends. You know, we'd go to garage sales, everything. So we would me and my wife would pick up girlfriend at the time, I guess, would go around these yard sales, pick up all these weird games, go to thrift stores, and just have this cool little closet of oddball games. In the meantime, we would play stuff like Magic the Gathering or Risk or whatever it was back then. And I just got super into having a really cool board game closet. That was like where it all started. And then I had been playing in bands and doing other like creative work, and at one point shifted it all to games when I found a company that made print-on-demand card games at the time. And it was like a store that printed cards and did like a little like wrap around the cards was like how they would box them, like a paper wrap. And I was just like, I can pivot my creative efforts from, you know, whatever I was doing, music or art or anything, into tinkering with this little bit of game design that was barely a game at the time. And that was like 2009-ish. So I started playing around with design, made a game called Pixel Lincoln that wasn't the Pixel Lincoln that I eventually released. It was just like a even smaller, worse version. But I was connected to a couple like local video game companies and stuff, so I would just sell that at their booth at conventions. And then it became in like 2009, 2010, whatever, whenever Kickstarter just started. I think it started in 2009. I said I was doing a monthly campaign, and I did one campaign. And 7 years later, I started doing monthly campaigns. So there was like a little bit of a little spark of what I would eventually do with Button Shy almost a decade before it. But yeah, so started making games, and the whole Button Shy thing came along. I used to make buttons for bands, and I had a company called Button Shy. And I stopped doing it when I had kids, got a real job, started making games, and decided I still had the like .com and I still had the logo. So I was just like, nobody knows about this. Let me just use the name and the .com, because I was like hosting, it was like buttonshy.com / whatever names I was using to make games.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't I just use the full name? Like, who cares? Who knows? Like, nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Exactly.
And even if they did, I think that would be like instant like DIY punk cred anyway, right?
So DIY punk cred. The only person who noticed was somebody we used to make buttons for. He's in a punk band from Chicago, and it was just like, wait a second, you know, I thought this was a button company.
Is it still a button company? Do you make buttons at all?
We started making buttons for like a few of our Kickstarter campaigns as like these little add-ons.
Yeah.
And every little thing we do, like other than the wallet games, becomes just like, it slows down the wallet games. So we tried it, we did it for a while. I bought new machinery, we sold all the old ones, and I just gave it to my wife for her little craft studio because there's just no time for it.
Right. So you know your lane and you stick in it.
Yeah, we try to go out of it all the time, and every single time I'm reminded as to why I should stick in it.
It's so very funny. Like I hear that a lot. So even huge companies like Days of Wonder, if you guys know Days of Wonder, do you guys know Days of Wonder?
They make like 2 games a year.
Yeah, but they make Ticket to Ride, and they made, in the past, they actually made other strange little games that were in strange little boxes. And then after that, they stopped because it's like, we don't know how to do these games. We don't know how to market them, how to sell them, where to put them, you know, but we know everything there is to know about boxes that are exactly this size and the games that go in them. So when you see Days of Wonder games, you'll notice that they're all in that, you know, Calyx friendly box. It was there before Calyxes were there. Well, actually, maybe not. I don't know.
It was that one before Calyx that I can't remember the name of.
Yeah. The Billy, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
So it was and they just stick to that now, and I don't think they deviate very far from that box size anymore, because they have a lane and they stick in it.
Ours is like so specific. It's like a wallet, the same rules and the same amount of cards, and no changes. Like,
yeah, and it makes it really easy for you to do it on that regular basis, right?
There's like no production questions ever, it's such a relief.
So it's just like, make it, test it, ship it. I guess we're
Exactly.
shipping.
Yeah.
I guess we're already shipping.
Yep.
Cool. What was the number one weird, funky game that you had found in like somebody's attic or closet or garage sale or something?
Oh, I mean, the one I mentioned, 10 for Good Buddy, it stands out so much. I don't know if you know anything about it, but it's a
CB game.
It's a CB radio game with a like checklist of all these actual like phrases that the truckers would use, and they are all like unbelievably, like it's unbelievable that they're actual true call signs.
Oh, I mean, it isn't, right? Like, I don't know when you grew up, but I grew up in the 70s when CB radio was like the thing for all of 2 years. And there were like a series of movies and things all about that.
That one has like wild artwork, has those great call signs, and it just stood out as another one.
It is a testament to its time period.
Exactly. That and any of the like movie, like the weird movie ones.
Right.
Like those old, like Krull. Was Krull one of them?
Yeah, I mean, I have played that.
Yeah,
that was a board game that I have played.
Just any of those, I just adore. Just the whole look of them, the whole culture around them. They're awesome.
Yeah, they're fascinating. They're not great, but they're fascinating.
No.
Before we go on, let's say hello to our viewers. We have George out there. Hello, George. George is kind of always around, which is game. We have Lucas Sorensen. He says, hello, button shy people. And that must be plural for you because you are now all of button shy people in one. We have Deadpan, who I met for the first time. I met Deadpan at PAX for the very first time. And I said, when I see you, I will say hello again. There we go. And Deadpan, interestingly enough, doesn't design games. He just likes the culture and he liked watching the show, and he caught on to the show and he said, I just like watching you guys. So welcome again, Deadpan. Very nice to see you. I hope to see you again soon. And hello to Curve Cut Games and Ideas. Hello to you as well. It's nice to see you. And I know Curve Cut was very interested in like indigenous games and things like that. So it was great to see a lot of people at PAX who I know through that circle, which is really wonderful. So I got to see, what's the name of the game that William made? Oh, you're mute, Kat.
Yeah, no, my mic wasn't unmuting properly. Winter Rabbit is that game.
Yes, so I got to see Winter Rabbit, which was great. Yes, and I have a new pin on my bandolier of pins from them. I think it's a bear. I chose the bear as well. And then a couple other people in and around that scene. I didn't get to see Connor Alexander, which was rare because usually we run into each other. But anyways, and also welcome to Quantum Potato. I don't know who you are, but now I need to know you because that is a wonderful, wonderful name. Quantum Potato. Okay, cool. All right, so we know where Jason comes from, and we know that you like 18-card games, but I don't know why you like 18-card games. I mean, I have my suspicions, but what can you tell us about 18-card games, and why do they float the button shy boat?
So originally, one of the early games we were pitched here from a friend, as I was like considering going a little more into publishing, was a game called Movie Plots. That was a local friend. It was kind of like an improv game that he would do live at local shows and all. But he'd do it on like these huge like placards that you'd walk out, across the stage, and then people would do their improv. But we were looking at ways to publish. We were talking about together, and I think it was 12 cards. And we looked into like 18 cards was a sheet then.
Right.
And I don't think that's still a thing because like I get 54 card sheets now. Or
it
56
depends.
Even.
It depends on your manufacturer.
So at the time,
I think
18 card sheets would be really small, but still, it's just basically two 8.5 by 11 stuck together.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was a sheet from the original person I was printing with, and we stuck with that. And as time went on, like it fit the wallets, and there was a whole bunch of research of how do you package an 18-card game. At the time, like Love Letter was one of them, and that was in a little pouch. You could do, some people were doing like a little Ziploc with like a cardboard header folded over the top. There were a couple different options, but I found these wallets and they sort of like capped out at the 18. So a few more and it started to stretch it. So I was like, let's stick with the 18 and let's make this the model, because I don't want to research boxes ever again or anything like that. I don't want to have to do this every time we come up with a game. I just want to get to the fun part of making games. So I started to put it out there to all my friends that were in design, because I've been doing a couple projects here and there, like collaborative projects. I did something called Storyteller Cards, which was just like a multi-deck of playing cards, but made a book with like 10, 15 designers in it. So I'd been working with a bunch of designers at the time. So I pitched this out that I'm going to start making these 18 card games pretty regularly, and to see who was interested. And at first it didn't emerge as well as it has recently, that like, or not recently, over the past like decade, but how cool that restriction is and how inspiring it is, and how many like new designers can pop in at 18 cards, because it's so much less daunting making a prototype and just coming up with an idea and putting that idea to paper. So initially it was just a production restriction, you know, something we could do simply, easily, and repeat. And eventually it became, let's make some really cool games because of this restriction, and just see how far we can push it. We have like challenges every year, and people keep saying like, are you going to like add a die to it or whatever, you know, or add a token? And we haven't gotten to that need yet, which is like adding a token or a die explodes this whole thing and makes it so much bigger. So much potential and options, but we surprisingly are still seeing a ton of unique special games that are just cards only.
It is absolutely fascinating how rich and diverse the game field is when you put such a ridiculous constraint as you can only do 18 cards and nothing else, and here's the package it's always going to be in. And so not only does it streamline your process, it does streamline some of the design mental processing, right? So it's like, I guess I can't use this. I guess I can't use this. So you're already cutting out some things that are like commonly held design tropes or mechanisms that you might have in your toolbox. And you're forced to actually weirdly expand your brain with a constraint, right? A constraint makes you expand your brain. Who would ever thought that? And yeah, you're right. I think it's sort of this funny thing where it's like you say, like new designers can jump right in. It's like, yeah, they can, but do you know how hard it is to make an 18 card game, everybody? It's actually really hard.
Well,
for lots of good reasons, though.
It's funny, and like and I think part of why it's still going really strong is we've been pushing that restriction even further in the recent years. Like we'll have a challenge, say design an 18 card game, but it must be about a holiday. A little bit of a better more restrictive. But the last one we did we're doing it now. Design an 18 card game, but the game can only use 9 of those 18 cards. So you're essentially building a 9 card game with like variation or random setup or whatever it is. That's more restrictive, and it has people really trying to figure it out because it is harder. And the one that we did that was the most restrictive of all time was design an 18 card game, but all 18 cards must be identical.
Yeah, that's my favorite one.
It's so wild, and we've never had more submissions than that one. Which
isn't that weird?
I was like, you can't do this. It's impossible. Let's throw it out there for fun. And we've received like 229 submissions. Wow. Yeah.
Actually, those are the those challenges are the reason that I actually wanted to talk to you, because I've never really successfully made a very simple game, because in my head, or in my opinion and in my experience, a very simple game is one of the hardest things to do well.
It is.
And so I happened to see that challenge with make an 18 card game about a holiday, and I was like, I mean, sure, I haven't tried. So I tried. I didn't get it made enough in order to actually submit it, but I used the competition as like a driver to get me to do something.
That's great.
And in the process, I was like, damn, this is even harder than I thought it was.
Which holiday did you pick, Kat?
This was when I designed Halloween Potato. So that's a game about basically you're trying to match up different pieces to make nice candy combinations and score on those. But there's also a potato, which can either be the highest or the lowest score, depending on what else happens. So it's based on that meme with all the people giving kids potatoes instead, and how the kids often choose the potato, even though it's not candy, because it's so different and interesting. So I'm deliberately saying candy because this is an American tradition, I would normally say sweets or lollies, but yeah, for those of you out there who are like, why is she saying candy? That's why. But what I thought was really
Do they
interesting
actually
was
have
what
Halloween
happens
in?
next.
Do they have Halloween in New Zealand? We need to answer this question
I
first.
mean, they do a kind of version of it. It's an American holiday.
Yeah, very
So
much so.
when I was a kid, a lot of people were like, oh, we don't do that. That's an American holiday. More kids sort of join in now, but it's much less than what
Got
it
it.
was.
Got it. Okay.
Well, I mean, than it is here, rather.
hmm
It's more. It's been increasing, but it's still very much like American culture, kind of trying to take over the world in a way. So there's some people who are like, "Yay, America! Take over everything," and the others who are like, "No," and so they refuse to participate in that as well. The decorations are fun, costumes are fun, trick or treating is fun. So I mean, I think the first time I went trick or treating, I was about 9, and I'm in my 40s, so it's certainly been in New Zealand for a minute. But yeah, anyway, the question I actually had about that was, if I had submitted my game, and let's say that I had been the winner, I wouldn't have been because I know what that game was like. But if I had been, what would have happened next?
So it's funny because we don't guarantee publication for the winner, and there's a few reasons for that. But it's always to get published. Like there's a cash prize for the winner. We share it and everything else, but we sign a couple games out of every challenge. We usually do, but we don't guarantee it there's like 2 reasons. One is I might not, like, the judges might love it, but I might not think it's for the company. Like it could be the very best game, but just not great for Button Shy. We've given a lot of restrictions to gear them more to Button Shy, like make them no more than 2 pages of rules, because once they get to 4 pages of rules, it's just too much for our audience. It really just starts to push the expectations of a tiny game. So we've started to kind of shape it so it's more like a Button Shy game, but forever it's always been, it might not be a fit. And another reason is because we could find things out later that perhaps the designer's problematic,
Right.
the art was stolen or whatever it is. I don't think we want to guarantee that and then have to kind of walk back on that, in front of everybody or just even at all. So we've never guaranteed that, but almost all of them have been published.
So what definitely does happen if I win? I can't remember what
cash.
the prizes
It's just a cash prize, like $100 or $200
Okay,
or
cool.
something.
All right. So I win a prize, and I may or may
Accolades?
not get published.
Yeah, exactly.
And accolades. Come on.
Yeah.
So
Oh
it's
yeah, no,
interesting.
absolutely.
But we've published like non-finalists, which is funny. Like they didn't even make it to the finals, and somehow they got,
But the game was like, I liked it a lot, or
Yeah, the first one was our game In Vino Morte, which is this little like wine and poison party game that's super successful at conventions for us. And we were playing the finalists, and one of the judges was like, I think we all missed this game. And it's only 2 cards. He's like, let's just mock it up with playing cards. And then we were all just playing it, a mocked up version of a non-finalist, and having a blast. Ended up just publishing it, like pretty.
Did you publish it as is, or did you develop it a little bit?
No, because it's like 1 page of rules. It's like cards are wine and poison. The dealer looks at everything and decides what everybody gets, and you can drink or swap, and that's the whole game.
Yeah.
So I feel like anything we would have done that's as simple as it gets. We would have complicated it and made it a worse game.
Well, what if everybody has this?
Exactly.
Now we need a die or a chit, and we don't have those.
Yeah, and we've tried to like recreate the magic of that game. Let's like come up with the second version of that, and all of them complicate it, and none of them are as good.
Right.
But
and I can see how that's a con game. I can see how that is like 100% a game that you play at a con, and like may not take out at a more serious, that's not a good word for this, but a different night at a home game. It's that kind of thing that you play at a con.
It's one that you demo at a con, and then like everybody who demoed it buys it, and then they come back and they're like, I showed my friends and gave them my copy, can I get another one?
Right.
It like flies at conventions.
Do you find that a lot, that people will give away their copy of your game so they have to come and buy themselves another one?
We do get a bit of that. I mean, ours are so cheap, but I'm buying a second one because I gave it away.
Yeah.
I'm buying a second one just in case something happens.
Yeah, I carry a copy of Circle of Wagons with me everywhere. Like it's in my
Oh,
bag at
that's
all
good.
times, and I should probably buy another copy to leave at home just in case I leave my bag somewhere.
Well, there's a
But
new
yeah.
version coming, so.
Oh yes, I did know that actually. So just a couple more people. Luke, Curve Cut's name is Luke. There you go. He said that he's tried and found that it's super hard to design a game with 18 cards. And he tried to make a Christmas Lane Battler, but it didn't work. So people in the chat have joined in these competitions that you're doing. Dustin Dobson, welcome, says it's hard to make any good game, but making an 18 card game has a much lower barrier to entry, in his opinion. And that's true. That's part of the reason why it makes for a good competition.
I think Dustin also won like 9 of our contests. So
well, there
just
you
to throw
go.
that out there.
Just
No.
you know.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
a lot of it is how you are as a designer, like how your brain works and what kinds of things
I think
you
so
build.
too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for some people, this is like the perfect format. For me,
Mhm.
as for Kirk, it's just you'll see Kirk's comment there saying, "Never been able to think of a workable idea for an 18-card game." I was in the same place. I was just like, I can't think what would work because it needs to be so simple. And I'm used to just going, you know what, I'm going in multiples of 18, but one being a multiple of 18 is not something I'm comfortable with.
There's also
So,
too simple, which we get a lot of, where it's very one note and it just doesn't do enough. And we'll see a lot that kind of for example, you mentioned like a lane battler, and we'll see like in a challenge for some reason this one pushes towards lane battlers for whatever reason, and then we'll see like 15, 20 of almost the same game that are just that one note and don't have that like extra thing to like set any of them aside from each other. So it's weird. You can get way too complex and you can get a little too simple.
Yeah.
And that middle ground is just perfect if you can hit it.
Right. Have you ever done an analysis or like a video analysis of, games that are winners, games that are, the one note type thing? I think a lot of people could learn from seeing everything that comes with all the constraints that happen in your competition. So it's like 18 cards, holiday theme, go.
Yeah.
And you get all the games, and then like Luke is saying, I made a card battler that was not working. What does a card battler look like that worked? Or why do
Land, air, and
card
sea.
battlers like not work in this particular thing, right? I think it'd be fascinating to see like, all the things.
There's 2 things we've done. Is way back in the day, me and Mike Mullins used to run the challenges, and we would do a lot of video work at the end. But we never talked about what we didn't like, because I just didn't want to single anything out. We only talked about here's what made it through and why, and hoping you can like deduce from that what makes a great game. But we just really wanted to, I don't want to put anybody on the spot. I don't want to use examples, and I don't want to make anyone upset. So we were trying to just kind of lead by example and see if that worked. But on Discord, we had a really small challenge. It was like 20 people. It was a really simple one. I said, let's open a private channel and I'm going to rip everything apart. Like if it's just us, I'm going to rip it apart. So I went through every submission. I think we didn't do videos for that one. It was just rules. And like the first line, it's like, blah, 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 a chess simulator. And I'm like, I'm out. And I'm like, I'm out, but I'll keep going. And the next line is like, you make a 3x3 grid. And I'm like, we see a million 3x3 games. I'm out. So like, I just kept pointing everywhere where I'd be out on everybody's submission. And it was really like, it was rude. It was like very quick to jump to things, but it was just a real inside look to how these work. Like I'll watch these videos and I'll just see like the table setup and be like, I'm out. But thankfully we've got other judges. Dustin's usually one of them. Ian Howard, who's with us, is another one of them. They'll watch the full videos and be like, no, you're wrong. But like, I have that balance, thankfully, for them to say I'm wrong. But I just know, like, you've got cards that have all this upside down text and a million icons and all. I'm like, there's no point in looking any further because it's just too much. And it's really simple to see. It's just too much. Yeah, everything's for our audience. It's only based on what we know, what we've done well. Lots of trial and error, and a little bit of gut feeling. But it was really fun to go through that directly with that group of willing people.
Right. I think people have to be up for it.
Yes, exactly.
It's very art school. So
Yeah.
I'd be okay with
I think it
that.
was fun, and
Some people need
everyone
to be okay with that.
really had a good time with that. And we've also done Mike Mullins, when he was doing it, would give, because we don't give a lot of feedback because it's really hard when you get 100
Sure.
submissions in a row. But
Oh,
Mike
yeah.
was doing it, to a charity submit, any donation to a charity, and he'll, write a whole bunch out for you, and that was really helpful at the time too. But it's hard. It is hard to give feedback to a large group of, even just watch it. It's like 3-minute videos. Submit 3-minute videos. We get
Oh my
100 of
gosh.
them.
Yeah, it's 300
So
minutes.
the new one is 1-minute videos, which is a whole other thing. That's a
Yeah.
whole
That's
other
better.
challenge.
Yeah, I
Well,
have
if it's a short, simple game and you can't explain it in a minute, then you need to practice your
then I'm
delivery.
out. I'm out.
Yeah, just get to the hook and don't teach us how to play is
Yeah.
what I've been kind of saying.
So Jason, you mentioned a Discord?
Yeah, so like Button Shy shifted almost all of our social media to Discord in the last few years, which was just like PAX. I thought it was like 3 years ago, and it's like 9 or something. But like, it's just, I'm on there all day long.
So you have to be too.
doing what I think our company does well, which is just, there's nobody between us and the customer. So our
Right.
games are all, that we don't sell to stores for the most part. We have a couple, but everything's, between, it's just us and the customer. So Discord is like our home base, but it's also like a very safe, comfortable place to chat directly with customers,
Right.
and fans and everything. So people will challenge our games there. They'll say that they don't like them and all, and I love those discussions. So it's not like safe on my end where like it's only people who love us, but it's just like all the other junk you get with social media.
Sure.
It cuts all that out. So it's just a really cool place to hang. There's like 7,000 members, but I don't know, a couple
There's
hundred that
there's
are.
like fewer rabbit holes to fall down and things like that, right?
And it's just, we can shape it, we can have a lot of fun with it, and kind of do everything else we would do on social media, but just direct to people who are there for that, as opposed to you get in some algorithm and end up on somebody's feed that, and they just
Yeah.
just
So if
mess with
people
you.
wanted to join the Button Shy Discord, how would they do that?
Yeah, good question. I have no idea. Like, can you search for Discord? Like, you used to not be able to. Can you now?
You can, yeah.
Just search for Button Shy
Often you need an
Discord.
invitation, but
Yeah, ours is open.
if it's an open server, then you can just search for it. I hate Discord, but I'm getting better at it.
Yeah,
There's so much
I'm not
on
a
there I
fan of
need to
Discord because
learn.
I'm old.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's a weird interface, and it could do with some UX, but whatever. It works really well for communities and things like that, and I've noticed that it is really popular for games. So,
Yeah, we
it
were
makes sense.
on Slack as a company, and like working behind the doors on like Slack for most communication, because nobody's around here. And they had like a limit of 10,000 posts before they start deleting, and all our dev got deleted. And I was just like, Discord keeps it forever. So we moved there as a company, and then I found out the other day, we started it because of our club. We have like a board game in a month club on Patreon. And that was like this secret place for patrons to be able to kind of get information and chat.
Right.
And then it just kind of blew up from there to now it's work and fans and the club and my whole day.
We can definitely also, in the comments later on, we'll be able to add a link to your Discord. That's
nice.
often the way that people go through. And I noticed that Lucas has also said that, so that's useful. But you can just also search for it.
Cool.
One of the things that I wanted to ask you, actually, and you gave us one example, but games that have gone from the competition and ended up getting published, could you give us a couple of examples of how they started out and how they ended? Like what the submission looked like and what it ended up published?
So
and I'm going to go.
You mentioned Circle the Wagons, and that was a challenge submission in 2016, I believe. And the cards for that are just 4 colors with the icon on top. Text on the back, like no artwork or whatever, but Sprawlopolis immediately followed that and was just colors. It was just, green, blue, gray, and orange. So no artwork. I tell everybody, just no artwork is needed. Don't spend any time, money, whatever on any artwork. trying to think of some other ones. Tussie Mussy came through there from Elizabeth Hargrave. That one, she had this really like pretty layout too, with this like little corner, borders and everything, and just flower, like bookish flower illustrations. Those early ones went through so little development on our end. We've had like a playtesting server for a while, some internal testing and everything. But back then it was like, we kind of went with everything that we got, prettied it up, cleaned everything up, and kind of converted it from a prototype into a product. But now our like dev is pretty wild and will reshape and balance the heck out of everything. So nowadays, there's a game called Dionysia came out of the holiday challenge about some Shakespearean festival, I believe. That one's getting a ton of dev from Mike Mullins. It's designing a solo mode for it. So it's shaping, and it's new designers too. So they've never been published, which I love finding in our challenges. But yeah, so that's I would say it's probably, I don't know, 40% different than it was when they submitted it, of what we've been doing over the past like 8 months. So now we're doing a ton of work to them now, and then just complete facelift visually. Really, before we would kind of take their layout, make it better, and give it some art. Now it's like, we can make a better game out of this if we move things around. And Milan is our graphic designer, and he's also the designer of Rove and Battlecrest, co-designer on all those. So we have a graphic designer that's also a game designer, which is amazing. Super helpful in, getting card layouts to be functional and not just nice. So yeah, we're spending a lot of time taking these and shaping them, and not just running with it like we used to.
Yeah,
we got away with running with it for a long time, though.
Yeah, he kind of did. Yeah. Mike Berg says that he was part of the harsh feedback session.
He was.
He found it super valuable. It was very useful to see what all the things were that would make a publisher like instantly drop out. And I think that is a good idea. So just speaking from my other hat, which is not Ludology, but TTGGA, so the Tabletop Game Designers Association, we just had Pat Marino from the OP tell us in not so many words why he would not sign your game, like in 15 reasons why he won't sign your game.
Oh, nice.
Even if it's very good, right? So it was a really very eye-opening talk for a lot of people, because they're, well, when you're close to your own game, it's hard to see what's wrong with it. But also, when your game is good and everybody says it's good, why isn't it getting signed is another really important question to answer. And it's also very, what's the word? Reassuring that it's not necessarily because the game sucks, right?
Exactly.
Because some really good games don't get signed for really good reasons. Let's see here. Card Game Design 1 said that they don't think they were there, but that the Discord was fun. Kirk is also saying that Discord usage is growing, while most other social media is dropping out. Except for Twitter for the Japanese publishers and the BGDL Facebook group. Yeah, I mean, I am basically on Blue Sky, and BGDL is actually dropping out for me as well, just because. And then lots of Discord, and I don't like Discord. Discord is like, it's like, I liked forums back in the 90s and early 2000s, and then Discord kind of just takes that and goes a little bit off and a little too much. So and just also maybe
outside of ours,
use, so.
I don't even use it. Like, I have a few like get some like sales and deals from, and like information from, but as far as like chatting goes, it's just ours. That's it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of what you need to do, is like have a home base, and then check out the other ones for what they're useful for, but then you kind of live on one or two of them. And even back in the days, I was that way with forums too.
Same thing, and I love forums, but a lot of people say like ours is their spot, which is I mean, I'm very
Oh.
thankful. You know, it's
Yeah,
great.
because you've cultivated a community. It's like a little ecosystem. They know where things are, and that's I think what makes people comfortable. Like I was very very big into one specific forum. It was about music, right? Because I was DJ musician. So one very specific forum, and that's the only place I stayed, right? So I think Discord is kind of the same, except I now have a wall of Discords.
Yeah.
Right, because they're easy to set
Yes.
up. They're so
I
easy
know.
for everybody just to kind of set one up. There's a wall in my Discords, a sub wall of like dead Discords that like nobody goes to because somebody set them up, said, "Hey, you should go there," and then nobody ever did.
I just had to set up another Button Shy staff one because we hit the 500 channel limit in the regular Button Shy staff one because we have a billion games. Each one has
Right.
like 7 art channel, playtest channel, and we've ran out. And I just
That is what I do appreciate about Discord is that you can really organize stuff to your own kind of mode of thinking, which I think for games is very important because we do the same.
Yeah.
Playtest channel for this game, art channel for this game, and then rules channel for this game, and you duplicate the whole thing, but for the next game and the next game.
Yeah.
And with a company, how many games does Button Shy have published right now?
I don't know, but it's over 100.
Jason.
There's Martin Borda is our little archivist, and he keeps track of Board Game Geek and keeps lists of every game and numbers them because our fans had this whole dispute over how should a game be numbered? Is it release date or like Kickstarter date? Like, we got a new game. It's like
These are
Kickstarter
good
hasn't been
questions.
released yet, and I said I don't care. Just we're gonna pick one and go with it. So we decided Martin's counting. I don't even know which one he picked is the right one, but he has a nice little Board Game Geek list. And it's well over 100 now. And then there's like expansion collections that aren't part of the numbers. But there's a dozen or 2 dozen of them. So we're probably up to like 130, 140 wallets.
Okay, and how many people do you know that have all of those Button Shy products?
Like 3, maybe. I'm not one of those 3.
Right? Isn't that funny?
I'm short one wallet that I actually got it. One of our fans gave me his copy, so now he's short that wallet. But it was really hard to get. It was like we released a small like 6-card version of the game, and then a card every month in our club, and then the wallet at the end.
Very funny. Yeah.
So some people have part of it. I have part of it. But this one guy had all of it, and he. At one of our little conventions, he gifted it to me, which was awesome.
Very kind. So you have a Button Shy convention.
It's called ShyCon, and it's once a year in a different city each year. It's one day, like 100 people just play games. We have like a cool gift bag and like exclusive wallet and stuff. And it was Nashville, then Chicago, then Denver. Like we worked our way west, and next year's in Seattle.
Very neat. So it's just where you want to go specifically, or where there's a bunch of
the
bands,
first 2 years was where food was, Nashville and Chicago.
Sure.
Ian, who runs it for us, he's our writer, moved from Nashville to Seattle, and was like, we should have it in Seattle. But everyone that had been going did Nashville, then they did Chicago, and I'm like, I think Seattle might be a little too far for the East Coasters and everyone who's been going every year. So let's go halfway and go to Denver. So we did Denver, and then we announced Seattle.
Very neat.
And yeah, music as well as just whatever shows are happening there.
Right.
Like we haven't announced the Seattle date, but I bought tickets to a show on a Friday. so it's going to be on the next day. We just haven't booked it. So if I tell everybody which show, they're going to buy flights and everything, and we don't have a location yet. So I don't want to like rope them in.
So how many people come to ShyCon?
It's been between, I think the first year was closer to 50, and last year was close to 125.
Okay.
But it was probably like 100, and then like 25 like guests,
right?
Like staff and designers and artists and whatever. But it's just super fun. It's just hanging.
That's a great one-day little thing to do, and have an excuse to travel and go play games and eat good food and maybe go to a concert or something.
Yeah, and we'll do like a little staff and like designer like bowling afterwards and stuff. Just all get to hang out for once a year.
I mean, because you got to take the skinheads bowling, so, I mean, right? So exactly. Speaking of new games, what is this Hyperstar Run? What is this? Who made it? And why is it the big deal today?
It's our next Kickstarter, January 7th. We do 2 Scott Elms solo games a year called Simply Solo. It's like our like tiny epic line.
Right.
Um,
Why is Scott so good at that?
Scott is like a machine. I don't know. I mean, he told me he's got a couple more planned, and
Yeah,
like it
right?
just never stops. But he's just very consistent, and I think like us, he has a mold. Like the tiny epics fit in this box, his Simply Solo fit in our wallet, and you're
Yeah.
designing to that, restriction. So started with Food Chain Island over the years. We've done Unsurmountable is a really good one. Ugly Griffin Inn. We've done so many of them, but the next one's called Hyperstar Run, and it's essentially like an old school video game platformer where you're working your way from left to right as this little robot and uncovering cards, figuring out what's on them, trying to get combos of these little button presses. And I actually have the prototype cards here where you can kind of see the little button presses.
Okay. Yeah, like video game buttons. I got it.
Exactly. You're playing
I thought
cards.
you were talking like button shy button presses,
Oh,
like to make actual physical buttons.
Yeah, you're
So you
making button presses. So you're revealing these cards and kind of seeing what's there, but you have like 4 runs to get through to the last card. So you start above it on the first one, and if you don't do it, you've gained some information. You have special abilities at the bottom, and then you try it again. You try it again. You try it again. You try
So
it
it's
4
slightly
times.
roguelike.
Yeah, slightly roguelike. It's this little video game like. It's cool art and kind of leaned into that old school video game, but with a little bit of modern. It's not like pixelated or anything like that. But we do 2 of his games every year.
It's not like Pixel Lincoln, that it's not like that at all.
Yeah, it was like, do we want to pixelate it? And I was like, I've been there, done that, know the issues. So yeah, but we wanted it to look nice, and it turned out really cool. So that's kickstarting early next year, and last year we did The Last Lighthouse was our January Kickstarter with Scott, and it did really, really well. Had really nice art, super good game, but we launched on like January 2nd, I think, and we were like the only campaign that Tuesday.
I mean,
it really helped.
What else can you back?
So I don't want to throw that out there, a little secret, but if you're the only one on Kickstarter, you do pretty well. Game was good too, but this is our January game, but it's the first Tuesday is the first, I believe. So we bumped it to the second Tuesday.
Getting all that Christmas money.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right.
Gonna spend it on a $12 game.
Cool. So why do you think contests are important for new designers?
So I started with contests as a designer. Right after I did like my games, like I took a next step as a designer and just saw like the Game Crafter contests. They started in like 2012 or something like that. That like ticking clock is everything. You've got 30 days or 60 days to make a game, and I feel like we all need some sort of motivation, aside from the restriction for like creative motivation, like motivation to finish it. Like a lot of people, they don't have to do this. It's not their career. It's nothing like that. They want to do it on the side, but everything in life kind of stops that. So that ticking clock, I think, really subconsciously pushes you to get it done and gives you a deadline and gives you a reason to get it done. I don't think everybody's in it to win. Like we've talked about some of these things lately. Some people just do things for fun and just want to be part of the group and all. But I think the ticking clock, the restriction, the group. So it's like we have like a really good, like even just talking about Discord again, but even on BGG, they have the same thing where everybody's just chatting about the contest and like kind of working together. Yeah, the feedback, they're willing to help each other, willing to critique each other's rules or, layouts or whatever it is. I think it just, see, how do you know me so well, the need for a deadline? It really does. That got me going as a designer. And I think just our simplicity is what's getting a new designer going. They just see that and say, I think I can do that. Like anyone should be able to do that.
Yeah. And then they get in there, they find they can't, but they'll try.
Yeah.
And I think that's the important thing is putting your pen to paper and putting the getting that idea out of your head onto the table, pushing those cards around. That's the proof that the game works or doesn't. Not if you have a good idea, right? And I think the 18 cards allows you to do that really quickly. Kat asked a question in the in the host chat because her voice is going. So I'll ask for you, Kat, so you can keep coughing. Do you see any particular patterns through all the contests that designers tend to use a lot of? So you said 9 cards in a grid. You saw lane battlers. What are some other particular patterns that game designers are using commonly to use 18 cards?
So we see, it's interesting because everyone is a little different. We do like, for some reason, like, I don't know we try to predict what they're going to be. We're doing a 9-card contest right now. 18-card game, you can only use 9 cards. A lot of people are leaning towards like maybe like social deduction, because what do you do with 9 cards? You can't track a lot. So like, maybe they're just roll cards or something like that. So we're sort of trying to predict what this one's going to be. But it's always something like that. Like you see, there's a ton of lane battlers. We used to call it Brave Rats. It was like every game was Brave Rats for a few years, where it was simultaneous reveal with effects, and we just saw so much of that. But we did, and I have it up here that I could actually read it, is our like submission form. This isn't for the challenge, but it's like ours. And what is Button Shy not looking for? And this usually kind of covers a lot of what we see. Clones or spin-offs of existing Button Shy games like Sprawlopolis.
Right.
We see a lot of that. Expansions to Button Shy games. We've had submissions and challenges that are expansions to our games. Dexterity games, we just know they're hard to sell. Trick-taking games, I have this like anti-trick-taking thing that I'm starting to get over because they're so big. Campaign games with carryover, it's just too much for our wallets. But here gets into the ones where we see a lot of it. Games where you make and rearrange a 3x3 grid for the whole game. We see a lot of that. 18 cards, for some reason, 9 is a factor. People use 9, make this 3x3 grid, don't realize everyone else is doing it. And then the whole game is move, swap, flip, and rotate. And you start out with the grid, you end with the grid, and we see so many games with that. And it's just hard to be fun. It's hard to stand out. But our game, Food Chain Island, is essentially that. So you can break through it, but a lot of times they're very similar, and we'll see a whole bunch of that.
Right.
Games where you set up 3 lanes and complete head-to-head across the lanes. It's just, Land, Air, and Sea, or Air, Land, and Sea did that perfectly, and a bunch of other things do it okay, and then a bunch of other things just do that. So it's one where it's been done really well, and it's hard to kind of find space there. Games where you simultaneously reveal cards, compare them, and that's it. That was that whole Brave Rats thing that we saw all the time. So we have that list. That's just on our kind of like submission sheet, but a lot of that also carries over to the challenge submissions.
Right. What are some good examples of 18-card games, maybe from Button Shy, that designers should look at to get a good idea of like the breadth and depth of what they could possibly do, so they don't do a lane battler, they don't clone Brave Rats?
So like Sprawlopolis, and this is a bad one to say because like I think it does it so well that it's like we're not signing anything like that because we're saving it for more Opolis games, because I emailed them the other day and they're like, we have 2 more games to send you for the Opolis line. I'm like, I can't wait. But what that did, Circle the Wagons did at first, was just scoring conditions on the back of the cards, and you play the game with the front of the cards.
Mm-hmm.
So there's only a few of these conditions come out per game, but there's a whole bunch of them in the wallet. And I feel like that sort of, there's a lot of something, but you only see 2 or 3 in a game, opens things up in such a huge, huge way. Sometimes people will do that where you see half of them in a game, and then you realize, you see 9 of these in a game, and every 3rd game I've seen mostly the same ones. That using those 18 cards to have things that only pop up 1 every 5-10 games is the variation that you need to keep people going, because you don't have more cards to keep people going. The games are going to look the same, the second, the third time you played it. Right. So having stuff secretly hidden was like so eye-opening to us, and made our line so much better as we signed those games. I think another thing to look out for is like card count runs out fast. So if we're playing a 4-player game, and it's the reason we don't have a lot of 4-player games, is we hand everybody 3 or 4 cards. There's nothing left like on the table. You know, that's 16 of the 18
Right,
cards. So trying to, you know, get anything above the table that you can, you know, anything tussy mussy, it's great. It's, you know, you've got a card that's face up and a card that's face down, and this game's happening in our heads, and, you know, we're messing with each other. It just uses the cards in a really good way. And I think people do the opposite. They just try to put a lot of information on the cards and have, you know, just multi use. And I think that starts to pull away from that like beautiful simplicity that some games do really well. And
So
that
you
can be a little bit of a
mentioned
trap almost.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
You mentioned player count then. I didn't want to let that slip by.
Yeah.
With 18 cards, what is a reasonable player count max to expect?
So as a designer, it's hard, and as a publisher as well, it's hard to get over 2 with that. Like we've put out some calls, like we're really looking for some good like up to 4-player games. And you can do like 3 to 9-player games that you have roles and things like that. But the problem with us is just those never get tested. You know, it's hard to get a play test of that down. So we've kind of shied away from that. And all those social deduction games that could be like 18 cards, but they require like 6 to 8 players. We've just never been able to properly get them to the table, you know, enough to publish them well. Because I say, like, if anybody's going to have one of them, it should be us because it's portable and fits everywhere. But just like this, the development and the testing of that really is difficult. Testing solo, 2-player games, all that is just so much more doable. But you do run out of cards quickly. So that 2 to 4 area is one that we've really been looking for lately. And we'll get to 3, and then you don't have enough cards to do 4. Occasionally we'll do an expansion to add a 4th player. We did that with like Skulls of Sedlic and other games, and that does it. But the search for the really good like 1 to 4-player game is that sweet spot. If we can hit it, where the game's great and that player count and that player range is pretty wide. Yeah, I'm always looking for that.
Sounds like the next contest.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's really interesting you say that, because it is something that maybe designers who are entering these contests should think about. It's like, don't start with looking to make a 4-player game, because it hasn't really
It's hard.
been
Yeah,
done
exactly.
yet, right? In a good way, and maybe start with solo or 2-player for this line. And I mean, I think for your model of, you know, constant iteration and lots of publishing and fast to hit print, those 2-player solo games are going to be the meat and potatoes of the line anyway, right?
I agree. Yeah, it's also a pocket-sized game that you can take on the go. It's hard to like pull that out when you have like a ton of like really nice looking, pretty big 4-player games. Like it's hard to get everybody to commit to that. So
yeah,
it has to be really special. It has to pop in some way. Usually like the portability and the speed of it can drive that.
and that's
so
exactly that's exactly what it is. I have one friend who works as another professor at the college, and we can only meet, you know, certain times of the day, and it's a perfect game to just like whip out on the table while we're having our lunch and like play the game, and then we go back and teach, you know. So
Exactly.
it's like, you know, 45 minutes to eat lunch and play this game. It's wonderful. It works perfectly. And any more would be like too much. So.
Yeah, when we'll push that once in a while, like our game Battle Crest really pushes the limits on like table size and things like that. But we try to like 1 or 2 of those a year that kind of push our limits in a fun way, and you know, defy expectations a little bit. It has like a second rule book and just much bigger than everything else, but squeeze 1 of them out of every 10 or so is the safe bet.
Right. So again, if you were to give like the top 3 games for designers to look at, like what would it be? Like, would it be Sprawlopolis?
It's like Sprawlopolis, Tussy Mussy, and Skulls of Sedlic are like, they're like our top 3 sellers, and there's a reason for it. They hit that sweet spot of simplicity. They don't go deep into, we've noticed that none of them go deep into like player characters or anything like that. They just keep it really simple. They're Sprawlopolis is just city building with 18 different scoring conditions that you pick 3 and play. Tussie Mussy is I cut, you choose. And as we build our little group of flowers, you can see what people have, hide a little information, show a little bit, but it's all about that choice. One's face up, one's face down. You take one and I get one. Super strong. And then Skulls of Sedlick is set collection, making a simple, tactile shape out of these skulls, but it has a really cool draft, and it's like super short on rules, and that hits 2 to 3 players and does super, super well. So they all have like one thing that they do simple, but they have like a cool draft. That cool draft goes so far. Like Circle the Wagons has the cool draft that like escalates that game to the next level. So I just try to focus on that. Have something that you do special on the table, and have a cool way to get cards and interact with other players if it's multiplayer, and then skip all the rest. Skip the characters. Characters are such a hard sell for us. I don't know why.
Yeah, it's interesting. Tussie Mussy was a real revelation for me, because I thought, oh, I wonder what an 18-card game can even look like. So I got that game, and I started playing it, and I was like, oh, I see. Oh, this is ridiculous. Like, how? Okay, but how did you do this? How did you make this like this? And
I watched the video for that and said, this is the winner. Like, it's the absolute winner to our challenge.
Yeah.
But it's so simple. I was like, this is almost too simple. Have I missed something? And then I was actually playing it, and I was like, no, it's not. There's plenty in this.
I've been guilty of thinking too simple on other like in Vino Morte. It's just it doesn't sound like it should work.
But I mean, that for me is the challenge with 18-card games. So I'm going to mention one that's not a button try game, that is one of the other 18-card games that made me go, oh, I see. I still can't design them. But that was another one. It's called Ukiyo, and I show it to a lot of my designer friends. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I don't know. I should check it out.
What's really interesting about it is each card has a bunch of squares on it that have different symbols on, and then in the middle, it's got a win condition. And so you have these cards in your hand, and as you play them out, you're reducing your potential win conditions by, with those symbols, attempting to create your win condition. Exactly. So you're layering the cards over each other. So, for example, it might be like a yellow flower on each corner. And so you're trying to build a yellow flower on each corner, but you realize, no, I'm not going to get there. And so you discard the card that has that on it to try and achieve one of the ones you've kept instead. I was like, that's brilliant.
How do you spell that?
Simple.
Ukiyo.
Oh, nice. Cool.
Ukiyo.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's just the kind of one where I was like, oh, I can't do this, but I get it. So, I mean, a lot of the button try games that I've tried have been in that same kind of, but I still can't do it.
I love being like amazed every one of these challenges. Yes. I'm always like, this is the one where it's like, oh, nothing's going to be able to crack it. And then we're just amazed every time.
Very, very cool. Oh, George asked the question. Do you ever consider games that are multi-wallet? I know this kind of flies in the face of the 18-card limit, but ...
So we get a lot of, not a lot, but a good amount of people that say, each player gets a wallet or something like that. So a 2-player game where it uses 2 wallets. And the problems we run up against is anything that like pulls from that portability. So we've done a couple that require dice, like way back in the day, or require some tokens, and anything that kind of steps away from just being able to pull it out of your pocket and play it usually will get in the way. So not only is it like, oh, I only grabbed one of them or whatever it is, it also makes it a $24 buy-in for 36 cards, which is a hard sell.
Right.
Like it's easy to sell one, and it's kind of easy to sell a second like full expansion that expands one, but the requirement of 2 and the entry level price being $24 is just it's a step outside. There's so many bigger, prettier, nicer component games for that price. So it's hard.
Right.
It is hard. And we've done a little bit of it. Like we did a game called Converge with Peter Hayward last year that's 3 different factions or 3 different whatever in a wallet, and we made 3 full wallets All of them are playable on their own, but it is sort of dancing on that 18 card limit where, you know, you've got all these factions, they can all combine. What I'm afraid of is like someone to say that, you know, it's a 54 game that you're kind of just pushing out there as 18. And the answer is no, it's good as the 18. The rest of it just gives variety, but we can only do so much of that. Like that was our, you know, our stretch for the year. But yeah, we get that question, and there are some super cool ideas with it. It's just the cost is a factor.
Right. Well, okay. It is 10:06, so we're probably at the end of our run. But let's just give a little more hype for Hyperstar Run. See how that worked? That was a nice segue, right? So Jason's gonna hold up the cards. Some of them you're gonna have to, if you really want to know what's on the cards, you're gonna have to reverse Jason's camera. So you're gonna screenshot this and reverse it. It's okay. They can do it if they're you know, they want to find out the text on the cards. So this is called Alma's Game, and it is a, you know, using a sort of a button mashing system.
Yep.
And you are trying to,
it's like work your way through the levels. Right? Exactly. Yeah.
Which is very cool. Very cool. Okay. And that is going to be kickstarting sometime in January.
Yep.
Yes. And then also, I guess, look out.
Link live? Can people preview it now?
Yeah, we do have the preview. I can share the link.
Yeah. If you share it in the host chat, I can type it into the other chat.
I will.
Cool.
So just hold down, everybody, while I type stuff.
Hold on while I log into Kickstarter. It won't.
Because that way people can actually go follow it straight away.
Yeah, here you go. I have it here.
So he's putting this into the host chat that you all don't get to see. So here it comes. There it is. Let's see if we can get it to you somehow. This might be a little bit messy, but we'll try it. So it's, oh, wow. Okay. I can't even copy out of this. It's kind of funny. So I have to type this all out. So just bear with me while I type at a really high rate of speed. And see, the thing is that I can type fast, but I might make mistakes. So that's where this, there it is. 9. And then my cursor got in the way. 09591 /hyperstar -run. Okay, there we go.
Yeah.
So here we are. We'll update that. We'll show this. All right, everybody. There you go. And we can put that in a link later as well. But it is a Kickstarter launch page for the upcoming Button Shy game, Hyperstar Run, designed by Scott Almas, published by this fine gentleman right here, Jason Tagmire. And it's coming in January. And I guess also the other thing would be ShyCon, you're going to announce at some time.
The goal is to have it locked in by the end of the year. So we should be announcing it shortly after that.
Does ShyCon happen around the same time every year?
Summer, yeah. So it's always between June and August.
So it's like, you know, when not Origins and when not.
Exactly. It's
Gen Con.
Dancing around all the other conventions.
Nice.
And birthdays, and, you know, this staff member can't make it because of that. But
Got it.
This year, my daughter wants to go to a concert in Seattle. So it's that
there you
weekend.
go. Awesome. Cool. All right. So we're going to say goodbye to everybody because it's time for us to go. So sad. Nice to see everybody here. Lucas, Kirk, Mike, George, Lucas. There's a bunch of Lucases here.
Yeah.
Card Game Design 1. Dustin. Who else is here? Curve Cut. We talked Lucas said already. Quantum Potato. Deadpan. You guys are awesome. Thanks for coming on. It was good to see you. Hey, next week we have nothing because it is our vacation. So we are on hiatus for not the foreseeable future, but for a couple weeks at least. So I don't know when we're gonna come back, but probably, you know, first or second week of January would be the goal. Kat and I will discuss that, and we'll figure out if we have you know, travel and all that kind of stuff. So there's things going on in the background, but we'll be around. If you want to reach us in the meantime, you can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Senfeng Lim. And Kat, where can people find you?
At JRink on all the things.
That's right. And Maple Syrup is also on all the things. And if you'd like to support us and keep the lights on here, you can go to patreon.com/maple syrup, and that would be lovely. Jason's website is buttonshygames.com, and we'll get the link for the Discord later. I couldn't search it, so couldn't find it. It's not that it can't be found, it's just I'm not good at finding things on Discord. So there you go. Jason, we do have a rule at Maple Syrup, is that the guest gives one piece of final advice before we sign off for the night. So do you have anything to say to the fans?
Oh man, we already covered my rule, which was
I know.
to enter challenges. I would say to come up with a brand new one on the fly for designers. I would say, so here's something that I learned early, and I don't do well, but I don't do well now because I'm so busy, but I watch other people do well, which is share everything every single step of the way. Yeah. And I see some people who are like, I'm going to be doing a Kickstarter in a year. Here's my game with no art, no development. Help me, which logo do you prefer? Deep Regrets was a really huge Kickstarter last year.
Judson Cowell.
Amazing, yes. And he detailed every aspect from development through, the campaign. So that was great for like a self-publisher or whatever. But as a designer, it's amazing. And, other people in the industry are going to be cheering for you. Publishers are going to see your stuff. But like share every little bit, like every choice you make. And nobody's annoyed by that. They're following it because they want to. And I think people say, do I need to copyright my game? Share everything you can, and you don't need to, how am I going to find people that are going to be interested in my game? If you share everything, they're going to be gunning for you and helping you and help you make choices on. So I think it's super
gunning in a
helpful
non-healthcare CEO way. Just had to put that out there.
Yeah. Not that kind of
so thing. So the Deep Regrets game, the other thing that was really good about it and the way that he did that was that it was authentic. It wasn't like this backhanded marketing ploy, because not everything was done. Like,
I was so jealous of it and like told him that. And then I should say it here is he submitted Shallow Regrets to us as an 18-card game, and we're doing it. So
there you go.
That worked out. But I was insanely jealous of how well he did that. It was just incredible. And
that's
I watched and know what he did, but still can't do it. Like, it's just like so much dedication, so much passion that you don't really see.
Yeah, I think part of it is also because he did everything for the game pretty much.
Yeah, if you're the artist,
you got stuff to share all the time, and I think a lot of artists by nature need feedback and creative feedback, and also have a lot of self-loathing. If you've seen my feed lately about art and self-loathing and the repetitious cycle of that. And I was saying, I'm at an all-time high for self-loathing, so I must be at an all-time high for creativity, because that should be how it works, and it's literally not. Yeah. So if you want a case study of how to do something really well, authentically, and build up that hype and show your work, right? As an educator, I'm always asking my students, you got to show your work. You got to tell me why you're doing things and show me why you're doing things. It's hard to follow because it's going to be a very long linear chain of events from like a year and a half ago when he first started posting things on BGDL. But if you join BGDL, if you're already a member there, you can see his post. Judson posts.
Yeah, for sure.
All the way when he said, like, I have an idea. And then like a month later, I have some art. And then after that, it's like, I've got some cards. What do you think? Right. And it all did come across very authentically. So he was somebody I was pulling for from day one because I loved the art style. And I was, at the time, I think I was playing Dredge a lot, which is a video game that is like, it's like Cthulhu fishing, right? Which is very similar to the concept that he had for Deep Regrets. And so, I was instantly on board, and his art is amazing. I love the water, and I love sea creatures, and I'm very frightened by them all at the same time as much as I love them. I think, oh, do I have one on? No, I do.
Oh.
You can't see it, but underneath here, there has to be, because I'm
Came
almost
prepared.
well, I'm almost constantly wearing like octopuses and things. So I love cephalopods. There you go. There's an
There
octopus,
you go.
which is actually from a game. It's from one of Daniel Newman's card games.
Oh,
Newman Industry.
yep.
Oh,
Which is an early button shy designer. We did his
Yeah.
first game.
that's right. And by the way, if you are at PAX and you didn't get to see the night market, because I
I
didn't,
missed it. I
See?
missed it too.
a bunch of the
I'm
the
crushed that
publishers
I couldn't
and
be there. I
designers
had to
couldn't
go
be there.
home for stuff, but
Oh,
Dinner
yeah,
took
'cause you're
forever.
local.
We were stuck.
it's
I-
everything
like-
that I want at a convention in
Yeah,
America.
I was at a meeting. I had a meeting. I had to play a role playing game that I was designing, but which was good. But I really love it because that is the one thing that I want to see more of, is that kind of indie vibe within a space that isn't indie, and I think that's I think Penny Arcade is the perfect place for it, to be honest.
Yeah.
Because it reminds me very much of a place I've never been, which is the Tokyo Game Market, which is something that I deeply want to go to because of
Me
the
too.
DIY punk rock zine style vibe that I think as a child of the 70s 80s is like bred in my bones. Like, we make that stuff by hand.
That's what we do
but-
at Button Shy, and it's
Yeah.
like that's the dream. And I was so bummed to miss that. And
Yeah, me too.
yeah,
And I saw like Dan Thurot got a bunch of the Space Biff, got a bunch
Oh,
of the games. And he's
nice.
like reviewing them, and I think that's kind of the coolest thing for somebody to hand make, 100 copies of something, or
absolutely.
even get them printed or whatever, however they did it. But they only have like a few hundred copies of it. They've sold out, or they sold a few, and then they're getting like some of the best writers in the industry talking about their games because Daniel created a forum for it, right? A way for them to sell
Yeah.
things and get them out there, things that you would never be able to make en masse, or maybe you would, I don't know.
Yeah.
Tony
And
Tran did a really cool RPG about just memorializing his grandmother's death, and that sold out. And so he's like, I don't know what I'm going to do with this anymore. Like, am I going to make more? I don't know. Is that what we do now? Or was this just really kind of like an art project, and like really for the memorialization of his grandmother's passing? Anyways, sorry, Jason, you were saying something.
Oh no, I just love it. That's all.
Yes. And Kat, you didn't get to it either, right?
I was supposed to, because I bought one of the copies of Tony Tran's game, but I just completely spaced that was when it was, and we were starving because we'd had a crazy, crazy day of doing like back-to-back demos. And we finally found somewhere we could eat, but then we were stuck at dinner because the service was super slow for like 4 hours or something.
Oh my gosh.
So, maybe not 4. Numbers are hard right now. A very long time. Like,
Yes.
I think we got there at like 8 and we didn't get away until nearly 11. So whatever that is.
So almost 4.
A lot of
I
hours.
believe they had to cut the line off because it was so packed. So
Yeah,
none of us may have gotten in anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it sounds like it was
Yeah.
a great success, and I hope Daniel continues to run it, or somebody continues to run it, because it is something that I think is really needed in this side of the industry. Because I mean, it happens in different ways in RPGs. Like, Indie Press Revolution is basically that every time, right? It's
Yeah.
like a bunch of ash cans, people get their nice glossy books printed, but like there's only like 150 of those books running around because they're doing short runs. So I think it really does get back to the artisanal nature of what games can be, and they can be fun and funky, and they're never going to find a mass audience, but that's okay, because not all games have to find a mass audience, which I think people kind of need to understand. Says the guy who makes games for mass audiences, but that's not the point. Not the point, everybody. Okay, cool. I've talked a lot. You've all talked a lot. We've all talked a lot. We'll see you guys all in January. And thank you so much,
Happy
Jason, for
holidays,
coming on.
everyone.
Yeah, happy
Thank you.
holidays.
See y'all.
Bye, everyone.